Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May God's peace, divine protection, mercy and abundance be upon you. Welcome to the Talk Success with Shamima Shah Jahan show. You may be either listening to this via one of our podcast platforms or you may be watching this on YouTube. Wherever you are, I want to say welcome. I'm so happy and grateful to know that we have crossed paths. And in today's episode, we are going to be talking all about success. Because as much as it is a buzzword in today's era, where everything's about being pro-choice and the concept of you do you boo, I feel that this is the most misunderstood word that is keeping a lot of individuals stagnant. And I must say that I was a victim of this myself. And I'm so grateful for God for shifting my perception so I could get out of this rut that was keeping me shackled and become a center of distribution. You see, when we talk about success, different people have different ideas, different images, flashes in the mind, because the way the mind thinks is through images. For an example, when I say the word cat, your brain is not going to be thinking of the letter C-A-T. Instead, you are going to have a picture of a cat, an image of a cat, whether it be your pet or some cat that you saw somewhere, flash onto the screen of your mind. Likewise, when I say the word success, you are going to be having a particular picture flash onto the screen of the mind. And unlike the word cat, different people are going to have different images being flashed onto the screen of the mind. Perhaps for one individual, it can look like success in a career. For another individual, it may be being married, having children, traveling all around the world in luxury, or buying their own property. The image that may be flashing on our mind, even on an individual sense, would differ depending on the season of the life that we are in. And hence, this is why it's important to understand the journey of seeking success is something that you have to do. No one can do the inner work for your life. You may be rich with money, but you cannot delegate it to someone else. You may have all the support system in the world, but this is not something that someone else can do on your behalf. If you are truly serious about making the most of this one life that God has blessed you with, then it is your responsibility to take full ownership of taking the journey of achieving success based off of what you define success to be. Because if I were to share my definition of success in life, what I would define, or if I were to paint the picture of what I define as success through words, you might not feel emotionally attached with it. Sometimes you may even disagree with what I define my success to be. Which is why a good practice would be to pick out your journal. That's one of my favorite personal development tools that I encourage all my clients to use. Pick out your journal and ask yourself, how do I define success? What does success mean to me? When I say the word success, or when I hear someone else say the word success, what are the images that flashes on the screen of my mind? And in those flashes, if you are consciously aware enough, you'd realize are premieres of the storyline that God has destined for you. For an example, maybe one individual will see them traveling all around the globe, And if you do not dismiss this idea that flashed onto your mind because of your lack or because of your scarcity, then it is an indication of what God can make available in your life. Which is why when you are defining what success means to you, what is going to give you true fulfillment in this world, and that's going to act as a bridge towards gaining greater elevation in the hereafter, you should not dismiss any idea that's gonna flash onto your mind. You need to be an observer and just write down whatever comes to your mind, and you might find a lot of deep truths about yourself that may have been buried in your subconscious mind. And this is another important part of doing the inner work. Now we come to breaking the second myth about seeking success, becoming a successful individual. We have to understand that it is in our innate nature as human beings to seek more, to want more. And this is not necessarily negative. And it's very unfortunate that when we see God speaking about man's nature of wanting more, the only angle through which we observe that and we are taught to reflect on it is from the negative angle. That if you are wanting more, then you are greedy. If you are wanting more, that means you've chosen the worldly life that's temporary and fleeting over the hereafter. But this is not necessarily true, because when God says something about us as a human being, it is neutral and it is based off of the angle and the direction we want to reflect on. The direction on which we want to do tadabbur on indicates whether it is something that's going to benefit us in this world and the hereafter, or if it is going to become a self-fulfilling doom prophecy. When God says that it is man's nature to want more, we can understand this nature that God has given us knowledge about and use it to our advantage to see how can I use this nature of wanting more to intrinsically drive me towards my holy mission, towards my goal, towards seeking success in both worlds. And if you just observe, having this mindset, adopting this mindset is going to do a massive shift for your life. You're going to instantly feel free and lighter. You're not going to feel bad for aiming higher, for wanting more goodness out of the limitless bounties of God. And if you acknowledge yourself as a good-hearted person who is committed to doing the tazkiyatun nafs of purification of the soul, then there is absolutely no harm in you setting a goal to want more of your life, whether it be more of health, more of money, more of your relationship, because it's going to help you propel in the direction of more goodness. When a good-hearted person who is generous, who wants to be a center for distribution, for expressing the bounties of Allah and being a channel of distribution through which goodness reaches other people, then when such an individual is blessed, then it is also for the betterment for the whole of humanity, starting from the ones who are directly linked to the person. So if you have been taught that wanting more is bad, it is something that has to look down upon, then I invite you to shift your perspective. Instead of associating wanting more from the world, you seek more from the limitless bounty of God. And who wouldn't want more from the bounties of God when it is going to provide a gateway for more goodness? We're talking about goodness compounding on each other, one that is not just going to shift your personal life, but it's also going to shift the life of all those who are connected to you. So say a strong no to anyone who is convincing you that wanting more is bad. Wanting more from God's bounty is being ungrateful. Because that's not the reality. Because more can lead to more gratitude, more opportunities of gratitude. So bring about a shift in perspective. And the third idea that I want to discuss with you today in the very first episode of Talk Success with Shamima Shah Jahan is what does it mean to become a successful individual? A lot of times we misunderstand that becoming a successful individual, or should I say being a successful individual, is equal to having what we set out to get. But this is not true. Time and time again, from reflection and analysis of the stories that God shares in the Quran and also the other holy books, we see that success is not necessarily the attainment or the having or the getting of the thing that we aim or that we set as an objective. Rather, it is the journey itself. I know that this statement is so cliche that success is not about the destination, but it's about the journey. But I feel that just because it's become a cliche, we've taken this statement for granted. We've not done enough reflection and pondering over this statement. Because in this journey, we realize that the true sweetness is not necessarily having the thing, but the person that we have become, the amount of inner work that we had to do, of healing, of overcoming trauma, of forgiving ourselves, of forgiving other people, expanding to have good supposition of other people, stretching our comfort zone, aiming higher. We come to meet a version of ourselves that we did not even know existed. For an example, from my own personal life, I did not know that there would come a time where I would sit in front of the camera in my studio, having my own podcast show, and just speaking to you freely and learning to relax in front of the camera. This vision that I am currently living was not something I could have predicted in these exercises that we do. 5 years from now, where do you want to be? 10 years from now, where do you want to be? I did know that God had gifted me with the ability to speak fluently, and He had even made me so passionate to seek knowledge and spread this knowledge. But I couldn't have predicted that this very moment would be in my scroll of destiny, if I were to put it that way. So do not get so caught up with its exercises on where do I want to be 5 years from now, where do I want to be 10 years from now, because quite honestly it can be paralyzing, and the mere lack of answer or the clarity of the direction can keep a lot of people stuck, and they assume or they make the wrong conclusion that because they do not have a definitive answer on where they want to go or what is their purpose statement or mission statement for life, that they are not going to amount to anything, that God has not chosen them for His grand work. Because the truth of the matter is, whether you realize it or not, whether every breath that you take represents this reality or not, you are a Khalifa of Allah. We are representing God on earth, and that is such a beautiful honor. And we do not need to compare our mission in life with that of anyone else. For an example, there is this wrong, toxic culture where if a woman is not earning, if she's not bringing money, if she does not have a business, and she chooses to dedicate her life towards taking care of her children and her family and running a household, she is less than. And to be honest, this was something that I suffered from for a long time. Apart from the entrepreneurial spirit that God has put in me, and even before I had recognition of this, the very fact that there was a point in my life where I had to pause getting the degree because my marriage was brought forward, put me into the pits of depression. And this was not something I could explain to someone else, because when I actually did open up and share my feelings with my mother at that time, she said that something's wrong. You gotta shift the way that you're feeling because you're getting married to the guy that you really like and you're feeling depressed. It just doesn't add up. Maybe you have to become more grateful. But this is the thing. Whatever you're going through when you're doing your inner work, not many people around you will understand. there is this sense of loneliness that sets in. But loneliness does not necessarily mean that you are going in the wrong direction. It means that God is giving you the silence that you need to process certain things that you are meant to learn alone. And not everyone around you, no matter how close they are to you, are a part of every lesson that God wants to teach you. And you have to become okay with that. And above all, understand that success is, like I said before, is not getting something. Success is not reaching a destination, but it is about the journey. Then successful is an individual, not only the ones who reach the destination, but anyone who is in the journey, who is progressing towards that destination. Maybe your destination is 10 years away in timeline. We may never know because God can collapse time. But let's say the dream that you have is 10 years away. That even if you were to return back to your Creator before the fulfillment of this goal, then we have hope in God. We have hope in Allah that even if you do not reach, that infinite mercy will take over, inshallah, that we will have the reward as if we have completely fulfilled that goal. And this is something that we see from the story about the man who killed 99 plus one man. He was a murderer, but God inspired in his heart the desire to change. And he did not reach the land that he was advised to shift to live as a new man. He died midway on his journey to that land. But despite that, God caused the nature of matter, the way it works, to change so that man is accepted into the folds of divine mercy. Because one of the interpretation of this narration is that there was an argument between the angels of hell and angels of heaven, and they finally concluded that whichever land the man who died was close to, that particular angel would take his soul. If the man was close to the land in which he did a lot of corruption and injustice to a lot of people and brought about a lot of pain to a lot of people, then the angels of hell would take the soul of this man. But in case the man's body was found closer to the land where he was going to live a reformed life, then the angels of mercy will take his soul. And in one of the narration that really touches me every time I think about it is that God caused the land where the man did a lot of corruption to move away from his body, and the land where this man was destined to reach and then live a reformed life to come closer. Stretching of land for this corrupt man. You see, God knows your pain. He knows your story, and despite that, He gave you the inner calling that you are holding. When I'm talking to you, you know exactly what is it that God wants to birth through you. Do you want to start an institution? Do you want to grow a multi-billion-dollar business? Do you want to heal generational trauma? Do you want to create a movement on earth? Do you want to birth more children into the world and make them leaders of the mu'minun? It doesn't matter. But you know what your calling is, and that's all that's required, and you are the only person who is required to understand this calling that God has placed in you. You do not need to look outside for validation or support, because the biggest support system that you can have is you for yourself and your faith in God, and knowing that God can make anything work for you as long as you trust and are willing to do the work. So remember, just to brush through some of the ideas that we discussed in this very first episode of Talk Success with Shamima Shahjahan, is that the definition of success differs to different individuals. Therefore, it is up to you to do the necessary inner work to understand and gain a greater clarity about what is it that your soul defines as success. And this is important because it will help you in deciding faster, where decisiveness is one of the key traits of winners. They decide in less than a minute or less than a millisecond because they have deepened their understanding about what is it that define as success. For an example, if someone were to tell me, hey Shamima, do you want to come to a party that's going to go well over midnight and we're going to eat a lot of food and we're going to stay up the whole night and then sleep in the morning, I will have to turn this down because I, through conscious living, have understood my limitations of my body. My body requires a minimum of 6 hours of sleep. If not, I cannot wake up for Fajr. And this is something that perhaps I can train myself into. But I am not going to forsake my beautiful sleep and a peaceful morning and disrupt it with a night of partying. So I would respectfully decline this. And although this may be a far-stretched example because I could not think of anything, and of course if it feels aligned to go to this party, you can make exceptions. That's not the idea that I'm trying to convey, but what I'm trying to say is that when you have a clear idea about what is it that you define as success, what is the destination that inshallah you are hoping to reach, it will help you become very decisive and say a definite yes and definite no, and stay away from this agitation and frustration caused by indecision. And the next idea that we discussed is how when we are talking about success, we are not necessarily talking about the getting or the receiving or having of it, but of us becoming a certain type of individual, becoming introduced to a version of us that we did not even know existed, becoming more clear about what is the work that God wants to birth through us, and learning to align with that, learning to set our ego aside and submitting wholeheartedly to God, and getting onto this journey of progression towards the destination, and understanding that being a successful individual is in the progression. It is a verb. It is an activity that you actively do. Just because I have a productive day today and I say that it is successful doesn't mean that I can go back to my old patterns tomorrow. It does not work. It is a lifelong work. And this is what spiritual development is all about. This is what the spiritual warfare, Jihad Akbar, is all about. Setting our ego aside, putting forth God first. I'm so excited to be talking to you in our next episode, where I'm going to be sharing one of the biggest breakthroughs that is going to help any impact maker and leader who wants to cause a difference on earth by being a channel through which God blesses this world and does more good through. And if you are excited for it as much as I am passionate to share it, make sure you subscribe, you leave a review because it will help us reach more people, and you do tag us on your socials. And if you are watching this on video on YouTube, then make sure you click that bell icon so you are notified when we upload next time. Till then, this is me, your host Shamima Shahjahan, signing off saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. May God's divine protection, peace, mercy and blessings be upon you. Stay blessed.